Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar discussing EU enlargement. We've just got a couple things to go through before we start. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the comment section and we'll try to answer them in our live Q&A at the end. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you'd like to see more of this content. And also, if you'd also like, please fill out the webinar survey through the link in the description, as any responses are really helpful to us. So let's have a look at what we will cover today. We want to look back at the history of the European Union. We're going to have a look at the latest countries in the accession process, so the countries that are in the application process and may join the EU very soon. We'll dissect the myth of European Union citizenship, and we'll also follow up with a live Q&A at the end. So today we'll be joined by our moderator and founder, Eva Hussein. Eva is incredibly passionate about helping people gain EU citizenship, and she has a deep understanding of the process. She is also a recognized leader in the fields of European citizenship and translations, and she regularly presents on the topics of citizenship, language services, and European history. Thank you for joining us today, Eva. Next up, we have two guest speakers joining us today. First up, we will be joined by Kasia Melida. Kasia is our senior EU citizenship specialist. So Kasia is the person that will help you discover your eligibility and begin you on your EU citizenship process. Thank you for joining us today, Kasia. And next up, we also welcome Tibbe Pill. Tibbe is our EU citizenship specialist, and her role includes assessing people's eligibility for the European citizenship with a big smile on her face. So it's great to have you as well, Tibbe. Thank you. So next, let's speak a little bit about Polaron Citizenship Services. So Polaron has been working since 2003 to help over 15,000 people to obtain EU citizenship and also reconnect with their European heritage. We provide administrative, linguistic, and project management support to our clients, as well as a dedicated case manager to assist with their journey. If this is something that you are interested in, please feel free to reach out to the team and we'd be happy to discuss it further with you. We have our contact details at the end of this presentation and you can find them in the bio as well. Next, I'd like to pass over to Eva to give a brief history of the European Union.
Thank you.
Apologies, I think we're having some brief connection issues. Eva will be rejoining in just a moment.
Okay.
There she is.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I was talking to myself for about 10 seconds. My apologies. So look, what I'll be covering this morning is a brief history of the European Union, as well as a bit of background information. And I'll also cover which states have been members and when it all started. And I'll also briefly touch on what European Union citizenship is, because sometimes there's a little bit of confusion as to whether that even exists. Yeah. So what is European Union? Look, it's a political and economic alliance currently of 27 countries. There used to be 28, but as we know, Great Britain Brexited. And 19 of those countries also share the same currency, that's euro. And really, talks of or idea of setting up the European Union started post-World War II, as the entire continent was recovering from the war. And in terms of history, the first conversations about setting up a union and a member-based organization, kind of started in the 1950s. And it just had 6 members, Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. It then became the European Economic Community in 1957 under the Treaty of Rome. And it was then renamed as European Community. There was a lot of focus on agriculture, on common policies, on elimination of customs barriers. In 1973, Denmark, Ireland, and the UK joined. That was the first wave of expansion in terms of adding countries to the first 6. In 1979, the first direct European Parliament elections and Parliament was set up. In 1986, Common Market was created through the Single European Act, and that was a 6-year plan to create a common European market. And the aim of that was to harmonize national regulations of different member states. And then another major milestone in European Union was where in 1993, European Commission was replaced with European Union. And that's when the single currency being euro was also introduced. Denmark and UK had opt-out provisions that helped or meant that those countries were able to retain their own currencies if they chose to. And that's as far as history. So there have been further additions to European Union, including countries like Poland, as well as Czech Republic, Latvia, Lithuania. There are plans to add more countries as we speak, so we'll be covering that shortly. But as far as what European Union is, it's a union of individual states, which they each retain, of course, their internal rights and borders and all of that. But it's an economic it's more or less an economic union of different states that also includes no borders within those countries, and 19 of them have the common currency. Thank you, Eva. I think we might be having some technical issues.
Thanks, Eva, so much for covering off that brief background. So next thing, we're looking at the enlargement of the European Union. So enlargement typically happens when new countries are wanting to join the European Union. As you mentioned, we've seen a lot of it over the years, and it's taken place several times within the EU history. Each time that new countries are added, it transforms both the EU and also the countries that join. So it's really significant to the economies within the EU and those countries that are joining as well. It also helps to spread the stability, peace, and prosperity across the continent. So it is quite significant. So as we can see here in this slide, there are currently 10 countries that are in the accession process. This means that they have lodged applications. They may be through to the next stage. It's typically about a 5-stage process. You can check out which countries are in what stage and when they try to join on the EU website. It's quite informative. But as we can see here, it involves countries that are currently through to the next process. They may be reforming their national laws to align with EU rules and regulations, and also EU standards as well. So what we can see here is the first 9 countries are in later stages of the candidacy process, and we're hoping that we'll welcome some of them quite soon to the EU. However, at the moment, Kosovo has not yet been granted full candidacy status. They are in the first stage of the process, and hopefully we'll see that coming through soon. So it's quite exciting, Eva.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, of course, political, and some countries have fully intended to become EU members, such as Turkey, but things have changed, so they kind of haven't cancelled their candidacy, but they haven't fully kicked it in, whereas other countries are progressing further, and this enlargement, it is hoped that will happen quite soon for some of these countries. All right, so these are the ones that are listed and waiting to be added to the fold. We'll move on to the next slide. Thank you, Eva. And we have a chat with our guest speakers, special guest speakers, Kasia and Tiba. I'll get you to turn your cameras on. Thank you.
Hello.
And maybe just a little bit about yourselves, Kasia. I know you've been with Polaron for about 3 years now, I think. Am I right?
3.5.
3.5.
3.5, yes.
Okay. And
so quite a long time. Mm-hmm.
Your title is Senior European Citizenship Expert. What does that entail? What do you do?
Well, I am usually a first contact at Polaron. So our clients get to chat with me or email with me regarding their eligibility for the European citizenship. Yes. So I guide our clients through the process, but first of all, I assess their case. So confirm if they qualify. So that's a great privilege for me because I get to hear their family stories, history of emigration, their plans for the future, plans for their European Union passport. And then guide them through the whole process.
And Kasia, you cover and you've experienced working across several of those citizenships. So can you maybe tell us, and I'm sure that this question comes up all the time, what is the difference between a national citizenship, so let's say Polish or German or Czech, and EU citizenship? Do you get that question a lot?
Yes, quite often. I'm happy to clarify that once you become a citizen of any of the European Union countries, you automatically become a citizen of the European Union. So there is no separate process, there is no separate application, and no separate document or a separate passport either. Yeah. So if you claim your Polish citizenship, you become a citizen of the European Union, as an example. Yeah.
Right. So to be a EU citizen, you need to be a citizen of the member country, essentially. So whether it's Latvian, Polish, Lithuanian, German, or Czech, your passport will have a little symbol that says EU on it, and it. Oh, right, you brought yours.
Yes.
That's it. The number of times I hear on our socials, oh, no such thing as EU citizenship. Yes, such thing. But you do have to be a citizen of the member state. Chiba, I'll hand over to you for a moment because you haven't been with us for 3.5 years, but it feels like you have because you are very much part of the team. 4 or 5 months ago? How long have you been with us?
A little bit over 6 months now.
My God.
Time flies.
And which citizenships do you cover?
I started off with Polish, so I'm very confident when I say that I'm most experienced in this field, but recently I've added German citizenship as well.
Okay. And you are yourself a EU citizen, of course. Of which country, can I ask?
From Belgium.
Okay. And with questions that you get asked about German or Polish citizenship versus European Union citizenship, does that come up a lot?
I feel like the conversations I have with clients, usually they don't tend to focus on questions like that. They're more interested in stories like
finding documents or anything like that when we talk about research to actually start the application. But yeah, they definitely ask sometimes.
Because there's a bit of a confusion. So in a country like America, which is also based of 50 states, there's one US passport. So each individual states do not have a passport. European Union's quite different in that those member states remain individual countries with individual laws. And individual passports and citizenship that each country would have different rules about. But in the end, you end up with EU citizenship and EU passport as well. Yeah. So hopefully we've clarified that. We move on to the next question. Thank you, Eva. And since both of you are holders of EU passports, Kasia, you in particular, you have experienced the expansion when in 2004 Poland was added to the mix, and not just Poland, several other countries. What was it like? Take us back. It's been 20 years. Do you remember the moment that Poland joined you?
I do. I was a teenager, so I did actually see all the changes. I experienced them. I also benefited from them, I have to say. So I'm happy to share my experience. But I think that the biggest change for me as a teenager, I just started exploring the world and traveling, mostly with my parents, how our travels just became easier. We didn't have to line up at the borders. Yeah. We just packed up the car and just drove to the destination. So that was a massive improvement, because sometimes it would have taken us hours at the border, to have our passports checked. And then as a student, all the traveling, I got to travel, drive and fly to all the European countries without any issues. So yeah, definitely that. But then also how Poland changed the infrastructure. Yeah, I remember I started studying in the city 80 kilometers from my hometown. And with all the roadworks happening, all the renovations, it used to take me 3 hours to get home. Yeah, and I was just complaining. But now, of course, after all those years, I'm like, well, that was necessary. And Poland's fantastic at the moment when it comes to moving around and infrastructure and roads and all that.
Yeah, because back in 2004, this was such an exciting time. Like I, unlike you, immigrated out of Poland in early or mid 80s. And at that time, there was no hope for this ever happening. So it was, Poles were elated that we are being included in this common marketplace. And I think there was a lot of hope, and I think a lot of the dreams have actually been realized, because as you mentioned, in the last 20 years, there's so much that's changed. From roads to infrastructure to, modernizing the way that people live, and the funding really making a difference on the ground. And I think approval rates for EU membership, like it's political. People talk, sometimes it's used by politicians to create a bit of white noise, but approval rates are still pretty high for membership, because people do remember what it was like, waiting on the borders, or not kind of feeling European, even, I would venture to say. You, however, Chiba, you were born as you're a digital native. You never knew anything different. What do you think adding more countries to the EU will mean in the European context? Is it a good thing?
I would say, personally, I think it would be a good thing. The more, the better. And then other people also will be able to travel more freely, because, it's really an issue for lots of people that they cannot travel as freely as we can, for example. So that would be really nice to add in there.
It's also an economic superpower. I think, Europe's got 500 million people, and it is one of the largest markets. So in terms of things like a supply of labor, inter-country movement, having that freedom to choose, to study, to work, is something that you benefited from. And adding new countries would hopefully just enrich all of that. And these countries have been making changes also because there are qualification criteria, of course, that mean that not everybody can join. Like there's so many things that they have to kind of elevate and lift up before they can be considered. It's like a lot of work behind the scenes that happens before a country can be added to the EU. But I also think that the expansion for our clients would mean what, Tibet, that we can do more different citizenships probably, but also that would add about 10 different countries where you can work, study, reside, and everything else, right, as a EU citizen. Cool. All right. So we go to the next question now. And the next question is audience questions, and we have a lot. There's lots of people watching us online wanting to know a lot of things, but I might kick us off before I hand over to Aoife and to you, but tell me, when you speak to prospective clients, why are they pursuing citizenship of the EU? And most of your clients will be probably American, UK, South African, Australians, New Zealanders. What is it that drives people to pursue this?
So I have a lot of cases where people do a DNA test, and then that way they find out that they have some European DNA, and then they do some more research, and then they find out that they have European ancestors, or they already know and they want to reconnect with their heritage. So that's like 90% of the time the case. And of course, having that availability to travel is very interesting for lots of people. So people who are looking to obtain citizenship for themselves or for their children, and to pass it on to their children and so on, for opportunities to work in Europe or study even. It's like the most things that I come across.
And just to clarify, DNA itself isn't able to be used as proof of citizenship, but often that's how the conversation starts. And I think, is it fair to say, Chiba, that a lot of your clients are looking for kind of like a plan B, you know, with different political pressures and whatnot that's happening in the world? Yeah. Is the motivation mostly that I'll just have that passport just in case? Or is it mostly I've got firm plans to move to Europe for study, work, or property or something like that? What are you seeing?
So it's changed over the last couple of weeks. Lots of people are actually looking for a plan B for if they are looking to leave their current area, that they can do it. So that's something that has come up very often in my latest conversations with clients. So it's interesting to hear the different motivations for all of these people.
And sometimes, I hope you agree with me, is that sometimes it does start with that plan B or that opportunity to study or work in the EU. But other times, it also morphs into something different, in that people suddenly realize that there's so much more to discover and connect them to Europe. Kasia, are you seeing that kind of approach as well? Like why when you talking to people, what are they telling you?
Yeah, so yeah, we mostly say about that freedom of, you know, traveling, studying, working in the EU, but for a lot of people it might mean much more. So they look at the European Union passport just as it would give them this sense of security and stability. And I think, yeah, we don't talk enough about it, but that's how I also feel about being a European Union citizen. Yeah, you have that feeling of belonging to a peaceful continent. You have that feeling that the security, political
Safety.
security, safety, yeah, financial, economic stability, and it's really important. Yeah, and I think more and more of our clients really think about it.
Good points there, Kasia. I wanted to tell everyone that the biggest family we've ever worked with was 40 people. It took us 2 years to do, and I still keep in touch with Jonathan, who's based in Boston. But the second biggest family we've ever worked with was 22 different people, and they were of Polish origins, but from Mexico. And when they were all approved, one of the leaders of the pack, I guess I could call her, Violetta, asked us for a job. So we gave it to her, of course, because she was super detailed and super organized and really impressed us. We worked really well together as a team when she was a client. So about 18 months ago, she actually moved to Warsaw. And when I go to Poland, we catch up, and we often talk. She did say that she feels so much safer in Poland, in Warsaw, compared to Mexico, for example. So for her, Kasia, that was just a relief to be able to feel that sense of security that you mentioned. And she also loves that she can jump on a plane in the morning, go to another country, come back in the afternoon, and flights are inexpensive. Internal travel is super easy. So for her, that was, convenience and also safety and security, and just feeling really, that sense of belonging. Because for many people that we work with, there's about 100 years of a gap between when their ancestors immigrated and now. So to be able to reclaim that space and connect yourself to your heritage, to your identity, is something that's quite priceless. And of course, you cannot put a value on it, but it's very much a secondary, if not primary, benefit of proceeding with getting a EU passport. Okay, so now, Aoife, after all this, time for real questions from the audience, and we have allowed plenty of time because we usually run out of time. So over to you. Thank you.
No, fantastic questioning. I think as a fellow EU passport holder, I relate to everything everyone's mentioned. I know that I benefited greatly from education across Europe, being able to travel freely. I'm truly grateful for it, and I think it's a great thing for people to work towards if they can reconnect with their ancestry as well. So we've got quite a few questions. So the first question I have is, if one parent gave up citizenship of the country you're applying to 5 weeks before your birth, would you still qualify for citizenship?
I might check that one before I hand over to Kasia, because there's a few things that we would need to clarify in order to be able to answer that question in the first place. Because when people talk about giving up, depending on the country, as long as the renunciation didn't happen, for example, for Polish, directly to the Polish government, but somebody made a statement on, say, naturalization certificate that I renounced my previous citizenships, that does not count. So we would need to know what kind of renunciation or what happened. What do you mean by give up, right? Before we can even say that it's a valid action, in terms of the government that you're seeking citizenship from. And Kasia, how would you answer this question after this, what I've said?
Yeah, no, we would definitely need a few more details in order to answer the question. But I believe that the question comes from someone with German ancestry, because we mostly get those questions from people interested in exploring the German citizenship, because as we know, Germany didn't allow dual citizenship until just recently. And yes, if you had a German parent who automatically lost their German citizenship through obtaining, for instance, US citizenship, and if that happened before you were born, then you most likely don't qualify. But there are pathways available now that could help you reclaim your German citizenship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
yeah,
right.
we would need a few more details for sure.
Yeah, particularly that the laws in Germany changed as of the 27th of June, just recently, whereby you can hold dual citizenship. So there's still a bit of room in terms of what you can do now, even if you lost or your ancestors lost citizenship. Thanks, Kasia. Over to you, Eva.
Great, thanks. Really informative answer. So from one question that was a little bit vague, we've got a super detailed one here. So how do I get around the fact that my great-grandparents left the Austrian partition of Poland in 1911 and were naturalized by the US before 1920?
So we're assuming that this is for Polish citizenship. Look, when it comes to Polish citizenship, there are two things you can do, at least two things, because the Polish government understands that there was no Poland for 123 years when it was partitioned, and there was therefore no Polish citizenship at the time. So people whose ancestors left before 1918 or 1920, when the first laws were established, as long as they did not naturalize before 1920, they may still qualify. And we handle a lot of these cases with 100% success rate, actually. But in this case, sounds like the person's ancestor naturalized before 1920. So you really cannot pursue this through citizenship through descent. Because it's one of the criteria that if you do not meet it, there's nothing anybody can do about. There are two other pathways through citizenship. One is called Karta Polaka, or a Pol's card, which leads to citizenship, but it's a confirmation of nationality. So under the Polish law, nationality and citizenship are two different things. So Pol's card gives you a confirmation that you belong to the Polish nation. That's what it actually says. And after moving to Poland for 12 months or more and residing there, there's also a language component. Passing a test, you can apply to be recognized as a citizen. So it's not immediately available, or citizenship is not immediately available, but it's a pathway that leads to citizenship. In some cases, it's also potentially a good idea to apply for your citizenship to be granted. And that's handled by the Office of the President of Poland. It's a discretionary process, which is assessed on merit. So it is not just your heritage that they look at. They also look at your suitability to be a naturalized citizen. Very much worth talking to Kasia or Tibe about this in more detail. But generally speaking, the Polish government has got at least two other, there's some others as well, two other processes for people in this situation. But it is not through descent. It is not kind of automatic, if I can call it that. It requires language learning. It requires, putting a case forward to the government, and then it can eventually lead to citizenship.
Fabulous. Great. It's great to hear that there's a lot of options available to our commenter. So the next question might be quite good for Tibe or Kasia. The question is, for Poland, what happens if an ancestor obtains citizenship in another country after the birth of child? Does that child lose the Polish citizenship?
I can answer that question. So yeah, particularly for Polish citizenship, it doesn't mean the loss of Polish citizenship of the next generation of a child. Yeah. So how the Polish citizenship laws are structured, it's they based on the right of blood. Yeah. So you claim citizenship, Polish citizenship at birth. Yeah. So we investigate what actually happened at the time of a child's birth. Yeah. So if a parent, one of the parents was a citizen of Poland, then a child claimed Polish citizenship. And yeah, after 1920 also, in most of the cases, dual citizenship or even multiple nationality was allowed. Yeah. But we would need just yes, a little bit more information in order to be 100% sure here. Do you agree, Eva? Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're just on mute there, Eva.
You're on mute, Eva. Sorry.
Aha, okay. Well, there you go. We need to do one of those, at least one per webinar, right? So it does depend on quite a few factors. So I think even the most straightforward cases that look really simple can be complicated. So it is best to just look at a case in its entirety. We're always available to run through your situation, and happy to chat to you. Yeah, I agree, Kasia.
Great, thanks guys. Yeah, if you do feel like you'd like to know more about this question or find out more about our services, you can fill out our eligibility form on polaron.com.au, and then the lovely Kasia or Tibe will be able to get back to you with some more information. So the next question we have is, my income is in the USA and I am a US citizen. I am applying for German citizenship as my mother was born in Germany. Would I have any tax obligations to Germany or the EU?
That's a good question that requires an answer from a tax advisor or an accountant that specializes in international affairs. All I can tell you is this, that as a EU citizen, you will you're required to report on your income regardless of where you live. I think there are tax thresholds, and it also depends on your residency status. So just by virtue of holding dual citizenship, your tax obligations won't change. But if you're to move to Germany, let's say, or another European country, it depends how long you stay there. I think 181 days is a threshold. Again, I'm just telling you what I know. It is always best to speak to someone that actually knows what they're talking about. It is a complex area of law, but there's some information that we can send that's publicly available after the webinar to the person that's asked these questions, and put you in touch with someone that we work with that specializes in kind of in inter-jurisdictional taxation advice.
Great, thanks for answering that, Eva. So the next question is probably aimed at me just a little bit. So the question is, when do we expect countries such as Albania, Serbia, and Ukraine, etc., to join the EU? So at the moment in the accession process, we don't have an exact timeline for when the next enlargement will happen. As I mentioned earlier, the countries that are currently in the application process are working hard on reforming their laws, aligning their views to align with the EU citizen views. So there's a lot of moving parts in it. We've seen that from what's available on the European Union website, some of these countries have been in the application stage process since 2012 or even earlier. So it is a little while of a long one, but hopefully we will see some new exciting joiners very, very soon.
And of course, it depends on politics and all kinds of things. Yeah, we just have to watch that space. But I think the plan with at least some of the countries that Eva showed is quite well, not immediate, but short term. That'll be kicked in quite soon.
Exactly. So the next question then I have is, if I am a citizen of a country that joins the EU, will I automatically get EU citizenship?
Yes.
Great, perfect. So I think that's really interesting because I think it's like your conversation earlier with Kasia. Kasia lived through that in terms of watching Poland enter the EU and gained that EU passport. So it's nice to know that it's pretty automatic once the country joins.
Mhm.
So the next question then is, what documents are needed if your parent was born in Germany?
Oh, goodness. I might hand over to Chiba with the proviso that we won't be able to answer that question because the answer is it depends. Over to you, Chiba.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same. It really does depend. If we're looking at which generation we're claiming the citizenship from, but from our case, when I'm speaking to clients on the phone, what I always tell them is the more information we can get from you, the better. Hopefully German documents as well. So documents that were issued by German authorities, so we can review them for the client. And then we can look if there's any need for us to do some additional research to obtain other documents to support the application. But I specifically always ask people if they maybe have an old passport, because that's always a really good document to have.
And just to add to that, Chiba, I will say that typically there are two types of documents we ask. One is about you. So your birth certificate, your marriage certificate. For German, we also require a police check, I think. It may be your naturalization certificate or whatever is relevant to you as the applicant. And then everything else that links you to your ancestors, depending on how many generations we go. That could include, again, birth certificates, marriage certificates, naturalization certificates, immigration documents, and census records, all kinds of things that people might have or we might need to get to be able to prove that you are linked to that ancestor by blood or, in some cases, if it's restitution, then we need to prove that your ancestors were subject to oppression by the Nazis. So for German, there are several pathways, including restitution, determination. There's several. So the types of documents that you'll need will depend on which pathway, how many generations we have to go back to. But broadly speaking, it'll be documents about you and documents about your ancestors that fit into the eligibility criteria.
Fabulous. That's great. Thank you. So I think we have time for just one more question and we'll be able to wrap up. So I think this question follows quite a similar theme of we are really willing to help you. If you'd like to find out more information, please do fill out our eligibility form and the wonderful Kasia and Tibe will be in contact. But it goes as, I was born in 1951. Would my military service in the US Navy Reserve disqualify me? I also worked as a contractor for the US State Department in Russia. Is this a problem?
Good one. Kasia, did you want to take that one on?
Well, I can tell that if that person is of Polish descent, then army service after January 1951 definitely didn't affect your eligibility. The same applies to German citizenship, Czech and Slovak, and a few other ones. Yeah, so can't answer specifically, but most likely not.
Yeah, if it's through blood, then that military, and if it's for Polish, it only applied till 19 January 1951. So anything that's happened afterwards doesn't matter. Yeah.
Great. That's great news. So I'm just going to wrap up now. Thank you so much to all our wonderful panelists and our moderator as well, Eva, Tibe, Kasia, you've been amazing today. If you'd like to find out more information, feel free to email us at citizenship@polaron.com.au. You can also scan the QR code if you'd like to follow along on Facebook. We have some wonderful Facebook groups that are a great community for discovering and answering questions, or you can call us at the number on the screen. Thank you so much, everyone.
And thanks, Eva.
No problem.